Yes. Here. You can just talk about it. Welcome, everybody. We will start our meeting with our invocation. For food, for raiment, for life, for opportunity, for friendship and fellowship, we thank you, O God. Amen. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. Please be seated. For those of you who are keeping track, I think we're on T-minus 5 meetings till I'm done being president. So not that I'm counting, but I have to tell you that our guest who was here last week from Missouri said, so you're the club president? And I said, yes. And he goes, oh, only like 5 to 6 more weeks. So it's a great job, but you're really happy when it's done. But I would encourage everybody to do it. You learn a lot about Rotary. Okay. Does anybody have any guests today? I'm just going to throw it out anywhere in any row. Any guess? Really? Okay. Well, we'll keep going. We have, first of all, a big, humongous thank you to everybody who helped out with Meals on Wheels last week. Ralph Brown, as always, I'm going to give you a round of applause for your hard work. The only thing I can say is it would be really great if when you guys did that, you would wear Rotary vests, because it would be, we have them, and it's really nice to show people what we do. So this is the third and final reading for Art Rush. Is Art here today? Okay, well, I think all of you know who he is, but if you have anything you'd like to comment about him, this is the last chance to do it, and then we will do an electronic vote with the board on his membership, and I think things are looking up, and next week we might have an announcement. So, Jackie Williams, are you available? Come on up. We're going to do the Rotarian of the Year Award. And I don't have a camera, so if anybody's got a cell phone camera and they could take a picture of this and email it to me, that would be great, or text me.
First of all, I would like to thank the committee that helped me with this, Stephen Yarborough, Rand, and Jesse. Jesse's not here, and Patrick. And so I want to thank them for helping me with this project. We voted on the nominees for the 6 spokes of Rotary Wheel, which is service above self, leadership in our community, attendance, participation and volunteerism, membership, and donations. And we want to thank everybody for all the work that they do throughout the year. It's not that not everybody does take care of everything, but we wanted to award one person for being outstanding with the 6 spokes. I'm going to go ahead and go through the nominees again, and then I will let you know who the winner was. And the nominees this year were Ted Munster, Chuck Yelverton, Chuck Lubers, Doug Tuvey, Jim Peterson, Steve Walters, Ralph Brown, and Mary Merrigan. Thank you all for a great year, and keep up the good work for everything that you do for our Rotary Club. And now for the winner would be Doug Tuvey. Doug, I think Jason is trying to get a picture. If
Okay.
you would like to turn around, make me feel tall here. And congratulations.
Do you want to say anything? Thank all you.
Okay. Well, this is a surprise. I never thought I did all that much, try to help out here and there, but everybody on that list deserves this as well. And so I'm very humbled to be in that crowd of people. So thank you very much.
I think anyone who's the treasurer, as long as he's been the treasurer, deserves more than the rotary wheel there, but, so congratulations, Doug. Okay, one more plug for the membership training in Sioux City. Chuck, are you here today? Do you want to say anything, or do we have anybody signed up?
No, we haven't had anybody signed up for this yet, which is a little discouraging. They had the first membership meeting in Rapid City last week, and they had very robust attendance in the Rapid City area. We lobbied to have one in our area so that people from our club could come. Argued to put it in Sioux City rather than having it in Sioux Falls. Hopefully pull some of the Iowa clubs in too. So this is your opportunity to focus a little bit more on this. And if you're interested, it's anybody in Rotary. You don't have to be in a leadership position. So if you're interested, let me know. We also have information up on their website and Facebook if you follow that.
Great, thanks, Chuck. Rich Holland has something to tell you about the Shakespeare Festival. You want to stand up and...
I'll try to use my booming voice. First of all, thank everybody for their help they have done in the past with us. This year, we've got a couple of typical things are we have people to watch the street. We block it off behind so we don't have traffic running through the air. And we also have people to help people come in and maintain the grounds of the beer garden and make sure that we're legal there. It's a little unique this year because first of all, we got construction on Plum, so it's going to be closed, which will look into a little bit. And second of all, in the past, we've had a little bit more help than we will this year with students. So we really need volunteers and we appreciate once again the two main things to be helping with making people comfortable and keeping the beer garden closed and patrolling the main street behind the stage during the performance. So, volunteers, let me know, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I know Jesse and I have already said we're going to help, so. Okay. Nate was supposed to be our sergeant at arms today, and he's a no-show. So I'm just going to say, everybody, just use your best judgment. If you feel like adding a little bit to that kitty, just put it outside the blue bucket. If you haven't been fined in a long time, maybe you know that you probably should, or if you haven't been to a meeting in a long time, maybe you should. Other than that, we'll just save it for next week, and we'll make Nate do it next week. Yes, Jim?
What's the fine for Nate for missing? Is he no call, no show?
He's no call, no show.
Group should decide it should be pretty big.
5? I see 5.
No, that's not enough.
$20.
At least 20, 25.
Okay, he's building a house, and having a baby, so I don't want to.
That's a little bit.
All right, I'll let him know. Yes,
I have something I'd like to bring up.
please.
Last week, all of us got an announcement of the survey that the Rotarian is doing down in San Antonio. And I filled the questionnaire out for a couple of reasons, so I almost threw it away. But when I found out the gal was from San Antonio, that's where I came from. So some interest there. Anyway, I sent her a note, and she sent me back an email that I'd like to read to the group, and hopefully will encourage others to put it in their delete box to go find it and retrieve it and do it. It took less than 10 minutes. It's very interesting, and it will help Rotary. She said, Dear Joe, it's so kind of summary of the results. I'm running the data on May 26th with my dissertation chair, so we should get an idea of what the results look like and a general profile of the respondents. Please talk up among your Rotarian colleagues to participate in the survey. Rotary International's head researcher is really interested in the results because we're looking at authenticating leadership and positive attitudes. Have a wonderful day, and many thanks for sharing your story and helping me attain a lifelong dream. Her name is Elaine. So I would encourage all of you to take 10 minutes this afternoon tonight before you go to bed. Fill it out. She would be most appreciative. Coming from an academic institution, being a librarian, I can attest to the value of research in making life work and things happen. So take a few minutes to help her out. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Any other announcements good to the order? Yes, Mary Edlin. What's that?
Welcome table?
Yes.
Okay. We are going to do the welcome table on Monday, July 24th. So put that on your calendars. We're probably going to need somewhere between 10 and 20 people to help, and I'll get all the details from John Lushkow prior to July 24th. So we'll need volunteers. Another volunteer opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Last time you had us bringing like jugs of milk and dessert. Are you going to do that all again when we get closer? Okay, great.
John will tell me exactly what we need to bring, and about food. He said that they have lots of access to food. So I don't know if we're going to have to spend as much money this year for our treasury on the welcome table as we have in past years. But I'll let you know all those parameters.
Okay, thanks again, Mary. Okay, Steve Walters is going to introduce our speaker today. Come on up, Steve.
We don't want to fine Jim for eating by himself at that table, so that's okay. Nope, we won't feel sorry for you, but we won't pay a fine for you either. Okay, Ralph. I got to meet Ralph first month I was here in Vermilion at the Wellness Center and observed Ralph and George lifting weights and talking and being friendly to me, so I've always had a special place in my heart for Ralph and his friendship. Ralph has a very accomplished, go ahead and sit down, this will be a while. Okay. Dr. Ralph Brown is Professor Emeritus of Economics at the University of South Dakota, longtime student of the South Dakota economy, and is a member of the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors, prepares a quarterly review of the economy for the council. Dr. Brown's written many articles, performed many studies on the state's economy, and in recent years, these studies have included the South Dakota Wage Study, study of South Dakota and the Great Depression, economic trends in the state's American Indian reservations, and a study on whether South Dakota is a poor state. The federal balance of payments by the state, the cyclical sensitivity of the state's economy, South Dakota and the recession, and wrote the book, The Tale of Two Cities, Sioux Falls and Sioux City. Retail trade patterns in South Dakota, just to name a few things he's done. Dr. Brown retired from active teaching in 2006. 2014, retired from 43 years as a forensic economist. He continues to consult with the state government. So we have in our ranks, and a good friend of ours, a very qualified gentleman. So let's hear it for Ralph as he talks about the Economic Council.
Okay. Let me first get the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors out of the way. That was started in 1992 by Governor Mickelson. So we're in our 25th year. Basically, we have 12 members on the Governor's Council. They represent academics, a couple from the university, some ag economists from South Dakota State, some bankers, some people in the financial community, people in the retail area, people in tourism and so forth. So basically, we're trying to get a sampling of what's going on in the state. We have people from Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Pierre, Vermilion, Watertown, and a variety of other cities. I'm the oldest member 2 ways. I've been on the council since it started, and I'm the oldest guy there. At any rate, we're going to do a little quiz today on the South Dakota economy. We're going to see how much you guys really know about South Dakota economy. Okay, first one. How has growth in the South Dakota economy compared with growth in the U.S. economy over the long run? Now, here are your responses. A, South Dakota grew faster than the U.S. South Dakota grew more slowly. Growth's been about the same. What difference does it make? Will this make America great again? So those are your responses. Okay, most people think it's what? A. Okay, well, let's just check the data. The data tells the story. Okay, what we have here is a graph, and I've indexed everything to 100 is 1990. And we're showing Sioux Falls, Rapid City, South Dakota, in the U.S. As you can see, Sioux Falls in 1990 had an index value of about 100, and now it's about 190. So it's grown about 90% in terms of non-farm employment. You know, this thing is handier than I thought. Okay. And you can see the average annual growth rate's 2.5% for Sioux Falls. And then Rapid City and South Dakota pretty much track each other with growth rates of about 1.6% for both, and U.S. lags at 1.1%. Now, all these graphs are what we call a racial scale. The only guy in the room that know what I'm talking about here is a couple engineers and Dan. It's a semi-logarithmic graph. And what that really means is you can look at the slope of the line. A steeper slope means faster growth, and a shallower slope means slower growth. With a normal arithmetic curve, it's growing at 2% a year. We'll have an exponential look to it, and you can't tell what the growth rate is. But so all my time series graphs, for the most part, will be a racial scale. Enough of that, huh? Okay. Now we're showing per capita personal income. And again, we're starting with 1990, and you can see South Dakota has grown almost 80% since then, a growth rate of 2.2%. In 2016, our last full year, per capita personal income in South Dakota was 97% of the U.S. average. Okay? In 1990, it was 84% of the U.S. average. So we've gained on the U.S. over that time period. Now, this is an interesting graph. This shows from 1929 to 2016. Now, the red line is South Dakota, and the blue line, of course, is the U.S. And as you can see, South Dakota really got hit during the Great Recession, or the Great Depression. In fact, in 2009 dollars, inflation-adjusted dollars, per capita personal income in South Dakota was low over 4,000. It sunk to 1,800. And today is approximately 43,000. So we have a per capita personal income in real terms about 10 times what we did in 1929. South Dakota was the most serious state affected by the Great Depression. We took the biggest drop. In 1929, 59% of U.S. per capita personal income fell to 36%, and again by 2016 we're up to 97%. So that's an interesting graph, and I mean you could. I wrote a whole paper on the topic, and you know what happened in the farm sector. The farm sector really got hit, as you know. I mean you had low prices, nickel for a bushel of wheat, and then you had the drought, and I mean you got hit both ways. Normally when you have a drought, you have high prices because of scarcity, but the overwhelming effect of the Great Depression depressed prices as well. Okay, next. Question 2. During the Great Recession, That's the recession we had basically 2008 and 2009. It was an 18-month recession, and it was the deepest recession in the post-war period. The only one comparable to that would have been the 74, 75 recession. Some of you remember that. During the Great Recession, how did the South Dakota economy perform relative to the U.S. economy? Declined more, recovered later. Both U.S. and South Dakota about the same. South Dakota declined less and recovered earlier. These numbers, of course, are all rigged, sure. Okay, pick your poison. What do you think is the right one? C. C. Okay, you guys are doing too well here. Okay, now this is a little more complicated graph. It's a two-scale graph. On the right scale, I'm measuring in thousands non-farm employment. That's red, South Dakota. And on the left scale, we're measuring non-farm employment at the U.S. level. And because of such disparity in terms of the numbers, when you put the U.S. numbers on, South Dakota's numbers would just be basically a straight line across the bottom. So we use a two-scale graph. Again, it's a racial scale, which means it's semi-logarithmic. And as you can see, actually, in the recovery process, the U.S. economy has a little bit steeper slope, or recovered a little bit faster than the South Dakota economy. Job loss, peak to trough. The peak was basically December of 2007. The trough is June of 2009. Peak to trough, U.S. economy lost almost 9 million jobs, was down 6.3%. South Dakota lost almost 13,000 jobs, and is down about 3.1%. So basically about half the sensitivity. And that pretty much, somewhere in that number is what we're going to see throughout the data. South Dakota recession began a little bit later, like a month or two, and we basically recovered by 2012, February, to where we were before the recession. The U.S. economy, it took a lot longer because there's a deeper recession for them, and it took until about April of 2014 before they recovered to the peak level. So the answer is, of course, is U.S. economy more severe and slower recovery. Okay, next. We're showing the same data for non-farm income. We're going to talk about farm income later, so don't get excited. But you can see, basically, South Dakota dipped a little bit. The U.S. dipped more steeply. Peak to trough, U.S. 2.8%, South Dakota 1.1%. Or we declined about 40% of the U.S. decline. So again, it was a much less severe recession in South Dakota, looking at the non-farm personal income numbers. Okay, these are the unemployment rates. Look at the unemployment rate. It basically, 1 month hit 10%. I'm going all the way back to 1990 here. You can see the shaded areas, like here and so forth, are recessions. So the first would be the recession of 1990-91. The second would be a fairly shallow recession of 2001. And then third is the Great Recession, and that was the one that lasted 18 months. As you can see, the ups and downs follow recessions. Went up steeply and then came down. And of course, right now, what's the unemployment rate for the U.S.? 4.4 the last month. Okay. South Dakota is a red line. The Sioux Falls and Rapid City is a jagged line. The reason why is that data is not what? Seasonally adjusted. In other words, there's very definite seasonal pattern to the data. In the winter months, particularly in the construction area, there are layoffs, and so the unemployment rate rises, and then the peak is typically in the summer. U6, the headline unemployment rate that you hear in the news is what's called U3. They have 6 different ways of measuring unemployment. U3 is the one that you hear, that's 4.4%. U6 includes discouraged workers, people who have stopped looking for a job. See, every month they go out and they survey 55,000 households, and they ask people who are 16 years of age or older, are you working? And they'll say, no, I'm in school, I'm retired, I'm not working, I don't want to work, I want to stay in the basement and play video games. Or they'll say, have you looked for work in the last month, made a contact? If they have looked for work, then they're counted as unemployed. But if they have dropped out because they just can't find a job, often they're a discouraged worker. Also, U6 includes then discouraged workers, might be a better measure of unemployment than U3, and also includes people who are working part-time but would want to work full-time. Those are counted in U6. Now, the U6 unemployment rate is currently 8.9. It was over, I think it hit as high as 14 or 15%. I mean, it was really high 5 years ago. South Dakota, again, of course, has a much lower unemployment rate, U6, 4.8. South Dakota's unemployment rate overall is 2.8%. 4.4 U.S., South Dakota, 2.8. Enough of that, should I stop? Okay, well, I'm going to keep going anyway. Which industries are most cyclical? I mean, ups and downs of the business cycle. Some industries tend to have greater layoffs than other industries. Okay, goods producing industries such as construction and manufacturing, are they more cyclical? Service producing industries such as retail, trade, services, healthcare, and education, are they more? They all perform about the same. What difference does it make? So what's the right answer? A. Okay, see, people are just, okay, here's the chart in the, whatever color that is, I'll call it yellow, green, whatever it is. That's measured on the right scale. And that shows service employment. And as you can see, even during the recession, it didn't decline. It slowed down, but it continued growing. And as you can see, the size of the service sector is about 360,000 jobs in South Dakota, where the red line is the goods sector, goods producing, and that's construction and manufacturing. This is all non-farm data. Okay, and farm data actually, in terms of employment, tends to be fairly stable over the business cycle. It's more related to other things than that. As you can see, reading this on the left scale, there's about 65,000 people employed in the so-called goods producing. So over 80% of the people employed in the state are in service industries. Okay, next. This shows manufacturing employment. Now, I'm sorry I covered up the U.S. As you can see, U.S. declined 13.1%, South Dakota 4.8%. It doesn't look like that on the scale. It kind of distorts the magnitude of the fall. But South Dakota did not fall to the same extent. One reason is that a lot of manufacturing in South Dakota is in the food producing area, and that tends to be more stable over the business cycle. U.S. has about 9% of its people employed in manufacturing. South Dakota, actually 9.4, a little bit more. We don't think ourselves as a manufacturing state. Sioux Falls, 9.3. Let me make a comment about manufacturing. You've heard a lot about it in the past election and since, about loss of jobs. In 1979, we peaked out at about 19.5 million people employed in manufacturing, about 19, almost 20 million. Today, it's a little over 12 million. So we've had a substantial loss of jobs. Now, production or output in manufacturing since 1979 and present has more than doubled. So here we've lost 40% of labor force, or people employed in manufacturing, yet output is more than doubled. What's happened there? Obviously, the workers become more productive. They become more productive because we have more capital per worker. Human capital, workers are better trained and educated. And these are factors, and then technology itself. Economists estimate about 80% of the job loss over that time period has been due to, quote, technology. I'll use that all inclusive. Trade accounts for the other 20%. The stuff you hear in the news is it's all trade, it's all those Mexicans and Canadians and Chinese and so forth. To be sure, they've taken some jobs, but it's quite a different story than what you hear. So most of the job loss is actually due to technological change. We're producing more than we ever did before. I hear people sometimes say, do we produce anything anymore? Do we buy everything from China? Well, we buy a lot from China, there's no question. And it's a lot cheaper than we can produce it here in many cases. That's why we buy it. But we are still a manufacturing country in terms of percent of output and so forth. In terms of employment, of course, not so much. Productivity in manufacturing has grown about 2.5% a year, or productivity in the overall economy about 1.5 or so. So it's grown much more rapidly. Okay. Construction employment, of course, is very cyclical. Look what happened during the Great Recession. Peak to trough, U.S. fell 29%, we fell 16%. So about half in this case, the sensitivity. You can see we're now up to about 25,000 jobs. Prior to the Great Recession, we were about 23 or 24,000. So we passed the peak. We've had a full recovery. The big thing is, you may note, in construction is trying to get people who hire people, trying to get contractors trying to get employees, labor shortages in specific areas. Okay, next. Financial activity is quite important in South Dakota. As you know, Jerry Johnson bought Citibank to South Dakota in about 1980. And after that, of course, you saw many other banks proliferate in Sioux Falls. And so that's become a big deal. And, but in recent years, we've had a downturn. And in fact, the downturn was more serious, 13% peak to trough than the U.S. We're not quite back yet to peak. We got a little setback here with Capital One a couple months ago, pulling out of Sioux Falls. According to Kurt Everson, who's the director of Banking Association, things are kind of stabilized now in the financial sector, but that's very important to South Dakota, as you know. It's that and healthcare services that really changed Sioux Falls over the years we've watched it. Farm income accounts for about what percent of total income in South Dakota? 10%? 25%? 40%? Forget it. Make America great again. What's the right answer? Okay, we got all over the place. All over the place. Let's see what the answer is. Farm income was about 6.4% of personal income over the past 5 years. 5.8 over the last 10 years. U.S. 0.7 and 0.6%, so it's really small there. In 2011, 10.2% of personal income. 2011 was where we had farm income at roughly $4 billion. There's 30,000 farms in South Dakota, so you can do the math on that. And so that was a great year. Of course, things have changed a lot in the last few years, crop prices and such, and last year was down to about 2%. Total impact, counting all forward and backward linkages, according to South Dakota State, manufacturing that manufactures farm goods and so forth, about 20%. I got to get moving here. Here's the farm income numbers. South Dakota, we're running about 800,000 or 800 million now. We were at almost 4 billion. So we've had a tremendous drop. Okay, how sensitive is the non-farm economy to fluctuations in the farm economy? The non-farm economy is not actually too sensitive to changes in the farm economy. The elasticity remember that from your freshman economics course, of non-farm income to changes in farm income is about 0.1. In other words, 100% change in farm income, which is not unusual, will only cause about a 10% change in non-farm income. I could go on a long dissertation on that, but I won't. The elasticity of taxable sales, that's what we're interested in on the Governor's Council, is even lower elasticity, about 5%. We're down about 2.2% over last year, and farm income is down about 6%. Of course, there are other factors at work in explaining what's going on in the taxable sales area. But the major impact, though, of fluctuations in farm income is farm equipment. Now, that has really taken a hit. In terms of per capita personal income, South Dakota ranks about 20th, 30th, 40th. What difference does it make? Well, what do you think the numbers there? Okay. Now, we rank 23rd at 97%. Now, personal income includes wages and salaries, supplements to benefits, proprietors' income, farm and non-farm, dividends, interest, and rent, transfer payments, and then we subtract government payments for social insurance that the employee pays, actually. Okay, here's the data. South Dakota per capita personal income as a percent of the U.S. Back in 1933, again, with 36%. 1948, just after the war, prices went crazy. My dad bought a section of land up by Frederick, South Dakota, and planted it all in flaxseed. He was a painter. He knew that we needed flaxseed. Made a fortune. I did well. In 1973, another year, remember the Russian wheat deal? And then 2011 and such. Okay. Overall ranking, South Dakota ranks 23rd. If we adjust per capita personal income for costs of living, which is 88% of the U.S. average, primarily because of real estate prices, we rank 6th, and our income is 111% of the U.S. South Dakota per capita disposable income, that's after taxes, we rank 22nd, just at 100% of personal income. If we adjust per capita disposable income for cost of living, we rank 5th, and we're at 114% of the U.S. Okay, here basically are the actual numbers. U.S. all the way down, per capita, disposable, and then South Dakota, and then the percent of the U.S., and then the ranking. Okay, now I'm getting to the real interesting slide. We rank 50th in wages, yet we rank 23rd in per capita personal income. What's going on? Low cost of living? Well, actually lower cost of living tends to lower our personal income. High percent of people working in South Dakota, that's a factor. It's those farmers. No, actually farm-related economies tend to have lower per capita personal income. The figures are all rigged. Here's the big deal. Look at the employment to population ratio for South Dakota and compared to U.S. Basically, about 68% in 2015 or 16, I can't remember which numbers these are, and U.S. about 58%. We have a lot more people working. Not making much, but they're working. I'll go forget this regression analysis. Okay, that's you can have it. Okay, how is Sioux Falls grown? This is an interesting chart. Look at Sioux Falls compared to other metropolitan areas. That's areas over 50,000 people. Sioux Falls, basically from 1990, has had the fastest growth rate of any of these. I mean, look at Columbia, Missouri, Fargo, North Dakota, Minnesota, okay, Fargo, Moorhead. U.S., 63% for Sioux Falls. Okay, how does South Dakota rank in terms of income inequality? We'll hear a lot about that.
one of the most unequal, one of the most equal, about in the middle, what difference does it make? Will this make us great again? Okay, one way of measuring income inequality is the ratio of average income of the top 1% to the bottom 99%. Okay, you hear about those 1%ers all the time? So the inequality index is the average income of the top 1% divided by the average income of the bottom 99%. U.S., the top 1% makes about $1.1 million. The bottom 99%, 45,000, so they have a ratio of 25 to 3. South Dakota at the top, about $1 million. 53 is the average, 99%, so our ratio is 19.3. So compared to the U.S., we're a little more equal. Now, I'm not saying a lot, but a little bit more equal. Now, this next chart's going to blow you away. Okay, we got at the top South Dakota and the U.S. Then we have the most unequal states. New York, the top is 2 million, bottom is 44,000, the ratio is 45.4. Connecticut, and then Wyoming. Wyoming comes in at 2 million, 52,000, the ratio is 40.6. So let's look at South Dakota. The most unequal county in South Dakota is Union County. 4 million is the average of the top 1%. Now, what's going on in Union County? Is it Elk Point? Okay, Dakota. And actually, the other 99% aren't doing too bad either. 48 is the ratio. Teton, Wyoming. What's that? Okay, 28 million bucks is the top 1%. No wonder I couldn't afford a hamburger there. 120,000, 233. They rank the highest in terms of inequality. Okay, there's 3,064 counties in the country. Shannon County, which is now Oglala, Lakota, ranks 3,062. The average, I mean, if you want equality, the average income is 174,000 of the top 1%, 32,000. Their ratio is 5.3. So, interesting. We have one of the most unequal counties and one of the most equal counties. Clay County, 557,000, top 1%. Look around, you see him here? Okay, I won't say anything. Pick out a couple here. 14.2. Okay. Enough. Got 1 minute for questions. Yes, Joe.
Yankton laments the fact that their sales tax revenue is lower than it was last year. Sioux Falls is lamenting that they have only 1.9% growth versus 4.7% they planned for. What is Clay County, or what is Vermilion? How much down?
Overall, I think the first 3 months of the year were down about 11%, 17 versus 16.
Wow.
Mine are based on actual receipts.
Yeah.
So I know you get
Taxable sales and actual receipts. Oh, boy, I didn't know that. Okay.
Why is it happening?
Well, you got a lot of factors. You got low inflation compared to, say, 10 years ago. We used to say growth in South Dakota sales would be 5.5%. With lower inflation, we're running at, say, at 3% would be normal. You've got the farm economy in tough shape. That has some impact for sure. You have online sales becoming a bigger and bigger portion of total sales. Some say inequality has been increasing, and the high-income people don't spend the same percent of their income as low-income people. So you got a variety of factors, and we're trying to sort them out, because if you look at the normal things like non-farm income growth, you look at the unemployment rate, you look at employment, these are all looking good. The bad, you've got the farm economy, and you got the online sales, as you know, are becoming a big deal, and the overall inflation rate is lower. And also food inflation, according to Jim Twilliger, the state economist, year over year, that is down. Inflation is actually negative for food prices. I haven't noticed it, but he has. And that's a fairly important portion of our retail sales as as well. Now, many other states don't tax food. Yeah.
Do you have any idea how the U.S. does with compared to other developed countries in unemployment rate?
Oh, compared to Europe, much lower. France has an unemployment rate of roughly 10%. Germany is doing well, but much of Europe is higher unemployment rates than we do. Japan tends to have low unemployment rate, but those would be the major countries we look at. Yeah.
The farm income slides were perhaps some of the most interesting and surprising of the slides. Could you define farm income a little more?
Well, it's based on proprietor's income, and it's based on an accounting definition, which would be total receipts minus expenses, adjustments for depreciation, change in inventories, and things like that. So it's a normal definition of.
So that's not income in ag-related industries?
No, it does include manufacturing of food processing. Last week, as part of the Governor's Council, we visited Bell Brands up in the Brookings, the cheese factory. That would be manufacturing, it's not ag, even though they buy a lot of milk from South Dakota. It's not part of the ag farm sector. Any other question?
One more. News report said that Iowa had a 3% unemployment, and they said that's equivalent to full employment. What does that mean?
Full employment is basically when you always have some unemployment. It's called frictional unemployment, and that's people changing jobs, moving, that type of thing. And then you have what's called cyclical unemployment, and that's due to the business cycle. When you get down to full employment, basically the unemployment you have is only frictional. It's from a normal change of jobs and so forth. Another definition would be it's unemployment that doesn't put pressure on wages to cause inflationary pressure. But that's. Any other questions? I know we're past our time here, but you haven't got anything else to do anyway. Okay.